happy to have Dr. Don Parker on the My K12 Career Show. Dr. Parker has taken time out of his busy day, week, month to share with us his amazing story about how he's gone from teacher to administrator to now being his own educational consultant and public speaker in the K-12 space. So we are super happy to have him on the show today. Dr. Parker, what's going on in your life and in your K-12 career right now?
What, Dr. Joe, I'm happy to be on here. Thank you for having me as a guest. Actually, right now, it's a Sunday night, and I'm in Springfield, Illinois, which is 3 hours south of Chicago.
Okay.
I'm participating in the Illinois Principals Association Conference.
Oh.
So I'm doing a session tomorrow on restorative practices in school.
Wow.
And so I'm doing that session tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it just to share the benefit of restorative practices and how it benefits not only the students, but also the teachers and the entire school community. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's awesome. So do they have principals from all over the state that come to this conference?
Yeah, principals from all over the state migrate down here for what we call the Illinois Principals Association Conference. And some people who I've worked with in the past, I see them down here. I'm meeting new people. So it's all about relationships and networking.
Absolutely.
So it's exciting whenever you can see old friends and meet new ones.
That's awesome. So that's what you're doing right now in your K-12 career. But can we go back to the beginning? How did you get into the K-12 space? Did you always want to be a K-12 educator, or did K-12 education recruit you?
Well, I had a few things that I wanted to do when I was young. Of course, like every kid, like I told you earlier, growing up in the hood, want to play in the NBA or play in the NFL.
Sure.
But I played high school and college sports, but how that pyramid is. So I wasn't good enough to make it to the top like a lot of other people.
Sure.
As a kid.
Yeah.
However, one thing that sports and athletics did teach me is just the impact that coaches can have on their players' lives and the impact that teachers can have in their students' lives.
Sure.
And so for me, my coaches were also my PE teachers. And I developed such a great relationship with them. I was like, man, I really look up to you. Tell me about how you became a PE teacher and a coach. What do I have to do that? Because I love your personality. You seem very happy. You appear to love what you're doing. So this looks like something I would like to get into. Yeah. So I went to school as a majoring in PE health, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so every summer when I came back, I would take a job at a day camp. And so I would lead my day camp groups. I would get experience teaching them sports skills, running sports camps, teaching low organized games and things like that.
Okay.
And so each year coming back home, it's like I'm practicing what I learned.
Okay.
And so by the time I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I got a job teaching in Chicago in a similar neighborhood where I grew up. And from there, I became a school dean. And then from there, became assistant principal and then principal. And now, like you said, professional development provider. So it's been a great journey. I feel very blessed with the unique experiences that I've had.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, what you're doing, like I aspire to do that, but I always felt that I would do this kind of thing in my own retirement. And I know you're younger than me. So tell me how that worked. Like, was it a situation where you were working as a school leader and you were also doing this part-time, and then you kind of jumped into the deep end of the pool? Or was it just something you said, I'm doing this cold turkey and I'm just going to let go and let God and make it work?
Well, the way it happened is I earned my doctorate degree in 2006.
Oh, wow.
And when I earned my doctorate degree, my dissertation is on what are the best methods and strategies that deans of students or high school disciplinarians can use just to reduce students getting disciplinary referrals and teach students how to be successful in school and in life, basically. And so what the research told me is that number one is building relationships, and number two is authoritative counseling. So once I presented that study to my chair, they was like, yes, now the new research is saying building relationships is key to helping students be successful. That's what a lot of people are saying, but they're not saying how to build relationships and what strategies and techniques that school personnel can use in order to build those relationships. So they said, we want you to go back and find some of that out. So I went and did more research, and I presented that to them, and they were like, this is an excellent study. We are happy to award you with your doctorate degree, but we charge you we charge you to go out and share this information with others.
Wow.
So ever since then, I've been doing presentations on building relationships with students, authoritative counseling, taking advantage of teachable moments, teaching students the consequences or rewards of their behavior. And I continued to work as a dean for another year after I earned my doctorate degree before I got my assistant principal's job. And so ever since then, I've been doing presentations on the side, like moonlighting.
Okay.
Brings in extra income. And as I did, the more I did it, the better I became and the more I loved it.
Okay.
And so I was like, I want to do this full time.
Okay.
And then I asked myself, well, can I really make enough money to do this full time?
Sure, yeah.
And I was like, well, everybody always told me, if you put the same amount of energy into speaking that you do on your job, think about it. We do our jobs 8 to 12 hours a day as school administrators. So imagine if you were putting that kind of time into any other thing that you were doing, you would get better at that. It would grow, right?
That's true.
However, easier said than done, because we have families.
Absolutely.
Our jobs give us benefits.
Sure.
And we have mortgages and debt and things like that. And so I was like, well, I don't think I can make enough to take care of all the responsibilities that I have. So I didn't do it. But then I started getting more requests to speak.
Okay.
And I was like, what? I see a window where I can make this work.
Okay.
And long story short, I'm going to tell you where the real blessing came.
Okay.
So my father is a Vietnam War vet.
Wow.
And so he would get a check from the VA, but he also worked at Sherwin-Williams for 40 plus years. So he was getting a check from VA and a check from his job. He was very smart. He invested his money. And so what him and my stepmother did, probably about 2 years ago,
okay,
they said, Don, you and your brothers and sisters, we want to give you guys what we call the living inheritance. So they gave each of us $50,000.
Wow.
And he said, that's because when I die, we don't want y'all fighting over our assets. We don't want any arguments, because we've seen families get destroyed once a parent dies. And so he said, since he made these investments, he said, I want to just bless you guys with this now.
Wow, what a blessing.
So it was a blessing. And so immediately I said, wow, if I take what I have in savings from the money that I've been saving up from speaking on the side, along with this $50,000, and my wife is very smart with money. She worked at Chase. She was a relationship banker. She was an investment specialist. She was a trainer. She's always done a great job managing our finances. So she was like, we could take this money and we could pay off our mortgage. She's like, and then you can go into speaking. I was like, okay, I like that plan. Yeah. So she took the money, we paid off the mortgage. I was like, but babe, I work just for one more year with my salary and we just stack. We're going to be sitting real pretty. And she was like, well, you need to do it now. I was like, no, let's just save this money up. All right. So long story short, this was over the summer. We were having this conversation. We went to Florida. She put the rental car in my name. Okay. I went to reserve the rental car. They saw that my license was expired. Okay. And it was a headache to get the rental car switched to my wife's name. It was a whole headache. We was in the rental car office for about 2 hours. Okay. She looking at me mad because I let my license expire. I'm like, babe, I'm super busy. I didn't have time. I didn't even notice it was expired. Yeah. She's like, yes, you did. I've been telling you for the past 2 or 3 months you need to get that thing renewed. I'm like, whatever. I'm sorry. So we get the rental car. We get back to Chicago. She's like, okay, this needs to be a first order business. I want you getting pulled over. Anything like that, you need to get your license updated. Okay, I'm gonna get my license renewed. And so, like I said, she pays all the bills. Okay. I get direct deposit. Really, she runs our finances so well nowadays. We bring home the bacon, we let them cook it. I ain't even looking at my check stub. This is direct deposit, right? Yeah. And so I said, man, ain't none of these bills in my name, babe. I was like, I need to take something to the DMV so I can establish that I live here, my address and everything. And she was like, okay, well, I'm gonna print off one of your check stubs. Dr. Joe, she printed off my check stub. I looked at my check stub and I looked at one of my speaking checks. I said, man, I done lost all my hair and I work hard. And this is what I get every 2 weeks compared to what I get for doing one speaking engagement. Wow. I'm like, babe, you're right. It's time to make that transition. Wow. Yeah. And so I took a leap of faith and I've been doing this now for a year. This month, actually, my year anniversary. Oh, okay. I launched my own speaking business and my consulting business. and doing full-time professional development and school consulting.
That's amazing. And what's even more amazing to me is you did that and we were in the middle of the pandemic.
It was, yeah, you're right. It was right after the pandemic. So we went out March of 2019, and I was finished that school year, and then opened up the following school year. And that's when I decided, okay, it's time to make that leap.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that says a lot about your faith. Are you a man of faith?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, because to me, that's something that you just had to trust in a much higher power to make that kind of decision. But you also obviously made some good choices in terms of when you were blessed by your own father to just set yourself. T.D. Jakes wrote this book called Position Yourself to Prosper. And that's what it sounds like you did. It was like, okay, I'm going to position myself so I can prosper even more with my own business.
And you brought up T.D. Jakes, and I'm glad you did, because during that time, like a year or two before that, I was reading his book, Instinct. And in his book, Instinct, he talks about how you can answer your comfort or your calling. And he was talking about how when we're not in a job and we're not really in a job that's our purpose, but we want to do our purpose, which may not be a traditional job, it was like how we feel like we're in a cage. And he says the way to transition out that cage is you open the door of the cage and you venture out, but then you can always come back. Then each time you go out, you can just venture back a little bit further, but then you can come back to that safe place if you need to. He was like, well, once you venture out and you're comfortable venturing out, then you realize you don't have to come back to the safe place. And I'm kind of getting there now, because the first 2 or 3 months, like, it was really good. And August is always a good month for PD, you know, and then things can kind of slow down a little bit. It's like, man, you could always go back to being a school principal or get a district office job somewhere. It's like, no, you just trust God. Don't go back to what's comfortable. If you feel like this is your purpose, you got to choose your calling or choose your comfort. And so I said, I'm going to trust God and just go with my calling.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, and like you said, being a man of faith, just knowing that he makes a way. You have to eliminate fear, eliminate self-doubt, believe in yourself, and believe in God. And sometimes we don't always know what to do, and we feel like we may not always be well equipped to do what it is that we want to do in order to make impact, to make income and have impact. But like you said, I'm a man of faith. I remember that God touched those 2 loaves of bread and those 5 fish.
Oh yeah, that's powerful.
So if he take the little bit that I got and just bless it, then it'll be enough. That's
100%. Yeah, no, that is amazing. That's a powerful testimony. So there's people out there, myself included, that are hearing your story and saying, man, how can I do that? Like, what would you say to them? And have you even thought about doing that? Like, I know you do some educational consulting. Is that what you do? Do you help people that might want to venture off and, you know, doing things on their own in this K-12 space? Do you help them get set up, started, maybe charge them to help them get that done?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't, because really I'm just learning myself.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm learning. Some people will call me and they will ask me just for some advice. And of course, I tell them how I got started and things like that. But I don't know the formula to it. So like I said, I'm new to it.
Sure.
But I'm always willing to share. So really, like I said, when I earned my doctorate degree on this topic, I started in my school just doing presentations to teachers on how to improve their classroom management. How to give students what they need, which is consistency, expectations, and relationships, how to build the relationships with students. And then from there, we have what you call a regional office of education. Okay. And so if you present for the regional office of education, they actually give professional development for your presentations. So any educator that comes, they get those continuing education credits.
Oh, yeah.
And so now they have incentive to come. And so they will host me as the speaker, and people would sign up to come to my workshop. And then, of course, I would do my presentation, and then they could log their CPDUs. All right. And then it came to a point where now I want to do this for other districts. And so now when people would come in and hear me speak where I was being hosted, they'd be like, this is great. You know, I love this message. I love these strategies that you're sharing. I love your story. But Dr. Parker, I can't do that. I can't stand in front of my faculty and tell your story and give them all these great strategies. Like, you're the expert on this. So will you come to my school and do this for my teachers and my staff? And then I would tell them what my fee is. And so they would pay me the fee, and other people who were in the workshop would come to me with the same request to come speak at their school. And that's kind of how it matriculated for me.
So
And so now people just,
that's really powerful. But like even with something as simple as just speaking fees or my fee for presenting at your conference, your school, your district, what have you. Like, how did you come up with that? Like, I know you're saying you're in your first full year, but in a lot of ways, like you said, this has been something you've been doing to some extent since 2006. So, so I mean, since you got your doctorate, so I mean, that's 10, 15 years, right? So how do you come up with even something like that where you say, okay, I might only be given a 2-hour speech, but I also am very aware of the value that I'm bringing to this school, this district, what have you, and this is what my fee is. Like, how do you do that?
Sure. Just looking at the market. So I'm gonna be honest with you. So when I was still in the building and we had our Teacher Institute Day, and so our assistant superintendent was in charge of, booking a keynote speaker, negotiating what his price was and everything like that. And so one day a keynote speaker came in and we listened to him. He was all right. And then I seen he was sitting at the table where I was with some other administrators, and I seen her basically reaching her purse and give him the check. And so when she came back to the table, she walked up, she saw him out to the exit, and then she came back to the table. I'm like, Doc, why'd you just pay him? And she kind of gave me that face. She was like, too much. I was like, well, how much is too much? I was real curious about how much she paid him. And then she told me how much she paid him. I'm like, he was only here with us for an hour. I was like, oh man, it's on. And so now I know kind of what people are paying for doing the kind of work.
Wow.
So I kind of base my prices off, other speakers who I know, asking them like, well, how much did you charge when you start? How much do you charge for a half-day workshop? How much do you charge for a full-day workshop? How much do you charge for a keynote? And so they told me they kind of have their floor, how they know the least amount they can afford to do it for, but then also work within the school's budget.
I love that. No, that's really cool. That's really cool. So yeah, if you ever do start charging people to help them get started, just put me on your list, bro. I like what I'm hearing, real talk, man, because at the end of the day, I'm a big believer that success leaves clues. And right now you are being a success in this role. And I have no doubt just hearing you so far, even with our conversation, that you could definitely help somebody like me, because I want to do it. Yeah, truthfully, I'm not ready to do something like that full time now, but it's definitely in my future. And like I said, I'm a big believer that success leaves clues. So why should I try to reinvent the wheel when I know Dr. Parker has already gone down this road? Does that make sense?
That's true. And I mean, like you said earlier, you're a man of faith. You sown seed with what you're doing with this platform. You're helping other people out. And so it's one of those things that will come back to you. So just call me. I'm happy to share any tips that I can give you or strategies. And it's more about what you can give more so than what you can get.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But I also believe in being blessed to be a blessing to other people too. So
that's true. Right. And so, I don't have to get paid from you, Dr. Joe. Like you planted seed, you go harvest. I'm gonna keep charging these school districts.
I hear you. Yeah, we can get you out here to Seattle, 100% for sure.
I'm coming out there. I was in Seattle probably a year or two ago.
Oh, were you? Okay.
So what did I fly into? No, not Seattle. I want to say it was Oregon though.
Okay.
But I had to drive to Seattle to fly back home.
Yeah.
So I was in Okanagan. I was in Okanagan, and they didn't have any flights leaving. And I didn't want to stay over because I think Thanksgiving was like within the next day or two.
Oh, okay.
So driving on Thanksgiving. And so I took that 3-hour drive from Okanagan to the Seattle airport, waiting at airport for about 3 hours, and caught probably was like a 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock flight.
Okay.
See, I'm in Chicago. So by the time the flight landed, it was still 11 o'clock. So I was still winning.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah, that's right. That's good. Definitely, for sure. This is not a one and done. We're definitely going to be friends and colleagues. And I know a lot of people up here, and there's definitely what you're doing, the kind of work that you're doing is definitely big here, truthfully, especially when you start talking about building relationships, solid relationships, restorative practices. Those kind of things are really big here. not just in Seattle
Good.
Public Schools either, but all of the school districts around here. So I definitely know that what you are doing would resonate with a lot of not only school districts, but also individual schools. So we'll definitely keep.
Yeah, the work is definitely needed. And I'm going to tell you, when we looked at the numbers, like during the pandemic and post-pandemic, as far as how many teachers were resigning, they called it the Great Resignation.
Yeah.
So many teachers are just burnt out, stressed out, and cooked. And it was like, but there's got to be an easier way to make $40,000.
Yeah.
And so they asked educators what were some of the reasons that they were leaving the profession.
Yeah.
And student-teacher relationships was in the top 5.
Wow.
So I know there's other factors that play into why teachers are leaving the profession and why principals are leaving the profession.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can help with that teacher-student relationship. Okay, let's not let this be the reason, because I can help you build stronger, more trusting relationships with your students. And what the research has said is when teachers go to work, when they have healthy relationships with their students, then it lessens their anxiety by 80%.
Wow.
And that's what the research says. And so I let them know, hey, I'm gonna help you lower your anxiety, because when you go into school discipline and student behavior, disrespect, and subordination will not be one of the things that stress you out if you apply these techniques and strategies that I show you during the workshop.
I love that. So when you go in and you do a workshop, is it a one and done? Do you have an ongoing relationship? Does the principal or the school superintendent want you to continue working with individual teachers, leaders? How does that look? Or is it just?
I've done so many things where I will go in and do a full-day workshop with a school staff, and then I will come back just to do some implementation and follow up. I've done half-day workshops and even keynote speeches.
Okay.
But I tailor my services to whatever the school needs.
That makes sense.
If the school needs me to come and do a workshop, like where I'm coming in once a month and doing a workshop, or if I come in once a quarter and do a 3-hour workshop, whatever school needs, I tailor my services to fit the need to help them solve the problem. So yeah, I mean, one day it can be very impactful, but yes, transformational change sometimes needs to take place over time.
Sure.
And so I do whatever the building needs in order for me to help them solve their problem, because I believe in solving the problem.
That makes sense. Yeah. And so I guess, and I know you've only been doing it full time for a year, but do you see with even the districts and the schools that you're working with, do you see yourself going back to those schools for follow-up? Do you see yourself, let's say you did a keynote this year, do you see yourself potentially doing a workshop? I've always heard, I don't know how true this is because I've never had my own business, I've always heard the best customers are repeat customers. So
that's true. That's true.
So yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely. I'm going into a school, and like actually right now, I have a contract with a school where I go in once a quarter.
Oh, okay.
So once a quarter, I go in, I do a 3-hour workshop with the staff. We get a survey, we get the feedback, and then we do a post survey, and we see how effective things are going after they have applied the strategies that I've used. And then I find out, okay, well, what are we still having issues with? And then we go in and we have conversations around that. And then I had a school where they wanted me twice a year.
Oh, wow.
And so now I'm working with a school where I'm going back. I'll be there 3 times this month, and then I'll be back again 3 times in March. And so like I said, I structure my calendar and tailor my services based on what the school needs.
That's awesome.
Sometimes you have to hear it more than once.
Don, just 1 second, bro.
Okay.
Be right back. We recorded, so it's not a problem.
All right.
To get on my son, he's making too much noise.
Oh, okay. Trust me. My youngest daughter has autism. And so I tell her all day, be quiet, babe, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, baby girl.
Yeah.
Sure. She keep doing her.
Oh, 100.
So I had to tell my oldest daughter, hey, take her down to the basement, give her iPad.
The basement, that's cool.
It's
really
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry about that. But yeah, this is really interesting, man. Like I said, I just feel like you're right. And I really want to piggyback on what you talked about as it relates to the Great Resignation. Like, what strategies are out there to I understand what you're saying about the anxiety and the fact that as it relates to the student-teacher relationship is causing a lot of that. But I also think it is that they're only getting paid 40K a year. And I'm like, wait a minute, I can be a manager at McDonald's and make more than that, right? And probably with less stress, right? And not have to worry about parents, students, and what have you cussing me out and being micromanaged by admin and all that. So what advice will you give someone that's probably watching you right now? Maybe they're a leader that's stressed out, or maybe they're a teacher that's 2 years in and they're like, man, I got to do something different. Like, what would you say to them?
Well, we were talking earlier about how this profession is a calling. So like I said, when I became a school teacher, it's what I wanted to be. I just wanted to do this work. And so there are so many rewards to teaching. And sometimes we have to just change our perspective and focus on, the rewards that we're getting from doing this profession, and also think about the impact that we're having on students' lives. To me, that makes it all worth it.
Sure.
Makes it all worth it. And so what we have to do in order to be a blessing and to pour into others, we have to pour into ourselves. So we have to realize the importance of, mental health, physical health, spiritual health. And you talked about finances, like financial health. So we have to be smart and strategic with how we manage our money, or how we manage the salary that we do get.
Sure.
And then also we have to make sure that we are taking care of our bodies. And then when those times do get stressful, because of course there's ebbs and flows to the school year, and there's stress levels go up and down. So we have to have good grounding techniques and strategies that we do in order to keep our mind at ease.
That's awesome.
Prevention. You have to prevent burnout and prevent being stressed out.
No, you said something that I 100% agree with, and I've shared this with my teachers on multiple occasions. This is a bottle of water, but if this bottle was empty, how can I pour into somebody else if my cup is empty, right?
You're exactly right.
No,
you're exactly right.
So
I became really good at self-care because I had a health crisis.
Okay.
When I was a high school athletic director, I was assistant principal for activities and athletics. I had 60 extracurricular activities and over 26 sport teams that I was in charge of. But they had to tie student, in Illinois, they changed the law to para, where you have to tie student growth to every certified staff evaluations. And so the title wasn't athletic director, it was assistant principal for activities and athletics. And that assistant principal title, that means they had to tie me somehow to student growth.
Okay.
So I was over the PE department, I was over fine arts department, I was over world languages, and I was over career and technical education. So from 8 to 4, well, actually 7:30 to 4, I was an assistant principal. But from 4 until 8:30 or 9 o'clock, I was the AD, the athletic director.
Wow.
My hours were crazy.
Yeah.
Like 12-hour days were the norm. And then sometimes 14 hours on Fridays when we had those big home varsity games. And so I did this job for 7 years.
Wow.
But that 6th year, I got sick. So actually, I probably got sick maybe the 4th and 5th year. And I was just trying to manage my symptoms. Then I had to have an emergency surgery.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, right before that emergency surgery, the doctor just really told me how critical my health was and how I need to focus in more attention on my health. And so I had a condition called diverticulitis.
Yeah.
I said, Doc, I said, how did I get this? He was like, yeah, because at the time I was like, 36, 37 years old. He was like, this is an old man's disease. He's like, is it hereditary? Has anybody in your family ever had this? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, the only thing I can really equate it to is stress. He's like, tell me about your lifestyle. And I told him basically what I just told you about my hours and how much I work. And he was like, it's stress. He's like, and at this point, we can no longer just treat it with antibiotics. He's like, you have to have an emergency surgery because if one of these, he put me in a CT machine. And he said, if one of these polyps in your colon bursts, you're going to sept it. And he said, that could very well happen. So we had to have emergency surgery. He had to remove 2 feet of my colon.
Wow. At 36.
So if you think about a water hole, you cut 2 feet out and then attach cut out all the infection. He cut out all the 2 feet stretch of my colon that was infected, cut it out, removed it, and then sewed it back together.
Wow.
And before the surgery, he said, I'm gonna tell you, one of 3 things can happen. He said, number one, he said, I can start the surgery, and if it goes without any complications, I can complete the surgery. He said, 2, I can start the surgery, but you may have so much of your colon is unhealthy that I might have to stop it, give you a colonoscopy bag, and then come back in several months later and then finish the surgery. He said, but option number 3, I could do the surgery and something could pop and you could go septic and die. So I was scared to death. And so my wife came in, she prayed for me. She prayed for the doctor. And at that time, I promised. That's when I made the promise to God that I was going to start prioritizing my health, prioritizing my family over my job. And so the doctor had warned me before that I need to change. And I would do good for like 2 weeks. Then I would be back to neglecting my self-care because what I was taught, you work hard, you take care of your family. So I thought I was doing the right thing, working hard, taking care of my family. I was taking care of my family financially, but I wasn't taking care of my family as far as emotionally and being there for them.
Sure.
Like I was gone so much. My wife, she was considering divorcing me.
Wow.
Because she was like, I didn't sign up for this to be a single parent.
Right.
And so after that surgery, I woke up 12 hours later, had a huge patch from here to here, got this huge scar. And the doctor brought in that 2 feet of my colon. He said, I just cut this out of your life. I just cut this out of your body. And then he said, if you want to continue to live and be healthy, what are you going to cut out of your life that shouldn't be there? I said, ooh.
That's powerful.
So from that point on,
out of your body, what are you going to cut out of your life so we don't have to do this again? If we're even able to do this again.
Yeah, it make me emotional. I almost tear up just thinking about it. And so from that point on, I prayed to God. I said, God, just teach me how to prioritize when I'm supposed to prioritize. So now I spend time in meditation. I'm very intentional about spending time with my family and nurturing relationships, exercising, eating right. So I've made a commitment to do that. And so it's crazy. I feel better at 47 now than I felt when I was 32, 33, 34 years old.
Wow.
And so when the pandemic hit, this was in 2015 when this happened. So when the pandemic hit in 2019, I had already had this experience. I was able to take my staff through how do we prioritize. They were stressed out. It was hard for them to manage change and to make the transition from in-person learning to remote learning. And then dealing with all the stress. And what the pandemic caused us to do is just slow down and really take a look at our life. And when you do that, sometimes you can open up a can of worms. Now, as administrators, we're used to having crucial conversations with parents, with students, with teachers during the evaluation cycle. We can tell them, hey, this is what we see. This is what needs to happen. And when we do that in our own lives and talk to our own selves about that, it's so hard to do. It's so challenging to look at those areas of your life that are a weakness so that you need to improve. And most people just stop when they start on that path. But there's a saying that says, if you want to go through hell, you got to keep going. And so I went through that process during and after that surgery and during the healing process. It took me 6 months to heal from having that surgery. And so when my teachers were getting stressed out, they were battling mental health, I was like, guys, I've done this. I'm going to walk y'all through this. So every school improvement day, every teacher institute day, every staff meeting, I did a self-care activity for my teachers.
Okay.
And I kind of did for them the same thing that some of my life coaches have done for me.
Okay.
As far as how do we improve, how do we prioritize what we prioritize, and how do we optimize our life, our gifts, and our talents in order to live our best life.
I love that.
And so teachers go through a lot.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, after the pandemic. And so expecting the teacher to just leave their baggage at the door and perform at their best, I tell people that's just like asking a student who's a student who had a lot of trauma to just sit down and learn. It's not going to happen.
That's true.
Stressed out teachers make stressed out students. The healthy teachers make healthy students. So I just spent that time doing a lot of social emotional learning with my staff.
Yeah, I love that. I have to steal that from you, Doc. Stressed out teachers make stressed out students.
That's the
Healthy
truth.
teachers make healthy students. I love that.
Yeah, exactly
That's
right.
really good.
Exactly right. So
Yeah.
if I want my teachers to be successful, I need them to be healthy. I don't want them taking a bunch of sick days. I don't want them dreading coming into the school. So I have to optimize my school climate, my school environment. So when they come in, they feel like, man, I like being here. That way they're not beating down the door as soon as they contract time, say it's time to go. They're not waiting to the last minute to come into the building. They're not dreading being there. You have to build a school climate and culture where the teachers love being there and the students love being there. And that starts with the climate that you set in your building as a school leader. Yeah. So I've always took that very seriously. That's
awesome. So Doc, right now, I know you've been only doing this full time, but I have no doubt that you're going to be in high demand all over this country and maybe even this world.
Appreciate it.
With all, I'm just going to speak that into existence. You're going to
appreciate it. I receive it. I receive it.
100%.
Hey, my arms out like I'm in church.
100%. I'm just going to speak. I'm just going to speak it into existence, my brother. I have no doubt that, and I talk to a lot of people that already. So, I mean, I can definitely see where this is only going to just explode on you in terms of your people wanting you to be a part of what they're doing and coming to speak and provide workshops and things of that nature. How do you see yourself balancing that? Because, I mean, truthfully, you're in Chicago and Illinois is big. The Midwest by itself is multiple hundreds of schools. And then so you start talking about the United States, it's even bigger than that. How do you prioritize that with also, like you said, being away from your family, things of that nature? I know you have older kids now. That probably helps.
Well, yeah, my oldest is 15, my youngest 12. She has autism. So they assess her probably once every 2 years.
Okay.
So her autism is so severe that they said she is 12 years old, but she's like a 3-year-old in a 12-year-old's body.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right. So she has a severe cognitive delay, severe speech delay, and somewhat of a physical delay. And so I just have to make sure that I'm doing everything I can. I'm making sure she gets her ABA therapy. I spend a lot of time with her because she has a sensory processing disorder where she loves swinging. She loves jumping in the trampoline. She loves swimming. She loves riding her bike. We go up and down hills. She's like hitting the curve so she can feel that bump. And that's just what her body requires in order to regulate.
Sure.
And so having her is like having multiple children just to fill her needs. And so you're right. I don't want to do a whole bunch of traveling and be away from home and have my wife take this challenging thing on by herself. So I do have to manage my time and manage my schedule and things like that. And so I can actually afford to do more work right now because I'm busy. It's a good busy, and I love doing the work. Fortunately for me, a lot of my work is local. And so sometimes I have to get on a plane once in a while, but it's not too much. But as it grows, I'll make sure that I keep that promise that I made to God and made to my wife that I'm going to keep a priority what's a priority. And I know God to supply my needs. So it's not like I have to do 3 jobs in order to make the money that I can do off of one big job.
No, I get it. Yeah, I was just bringing that up because not only are you a motivational speaker, you provide PD, things of that nature, but you also are a teacher at heart. I mean, you started off in this profession as a teacher. So I was just putting that, I was just really saying that because to me, what you have is something that definitely can be replicated if you're willing to train people to do it. So So it's not just Don Parker Educational Consulting, it's Don Parker and Associates Educational Consulting.
Hey, you said it. You said it. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that to say, like, even if it's somebody like myself, if we connect and you're saying, okay, all right, Joseph, Dr. Joseph, I'm going to train you in everything that I do so that if we get opportunities for PD and things of that nature in the Northwest and I can't make it, then we can work out an agreement where Don Parker and Associates gets a cut, but then you get the fee for actually doing the training. So that's a way to replicate Don Parker without Don Parker having to be at all these different places.
You're exactly right. And I'm glad you said that because I got hired by a school district and they wanted me to do a presentation once a week for a month. And so I said, okay, but I know I got this, I know I got that. I like, okay, well, how can I do this? Because it's not over Zoom. They want it in person.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I subcontracted a lady who is good with MTSS, multi-tier systems of support, behavior and academic interventions. This is her specialty. And another young man, the school wanted a PD on communication between home and school, and how to help the teachers use tools to help with that communication process. And so I know a young man who is an expert at that. And so like I subcontracted them to do those workshops. So you're right. And that's my vision for my company, to have associates where I can say, okay, you go here, you do this workshop. The school district is paying me this and I'm paying you this amount. And so you're exactly right. No, I'm just praying that those provisions continue to happen and I can connect with people like you who love doing the work,
100%.
And who's willing to collaborate and work with somebody else. Because a lot of people think that they can do it all and they want to do it all because I want to get all this pie. There's so many slices of the pie. I only need a slice.
That's it. So
I want you to get your slice too.
100, right? And the thing about it is like, and you're right. Like, so it definitely obviously has to be the right people but believe me, there's people out there that would 100% follow your lead, right? No different than when you was a principal and they were following your lead, right? And so at the end of the day, you're right. It is finding the right people and putting them in the right seats on the bus as it relates to your business. But I'm gonna have to quote Jay-Z here. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman, right?
There it is.
Like,
and that's where I'm going. And you quoted Jay-Z, and I'm gonna quote an African proverb, and I'm sure you heard it. But it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, take somebody with you.
Wow.
And so I'm thinking about the long game.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah. So I was thinking that way already because you understand about the associates and building the team.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about any major business, entity, individual, they had a team. Like you just can't do it by yourself, right?
You cannot.
No, that's powerful, man. And look, like I said, I've gotten so many golden nuggets from you just listening to you. I could talk to you another 30 minutes, but
yeah, no, there's a great conversation, Dr. Joe. I love what you're doing, brother. Man.
100.
You are really doing a great job with this platform. I see you on LinkedIn interviewing superstar after superstar. I'm just humbled and glad that you allowed me in your space, my brother.
Well, my brother, you are definitely a superstar, and I'm super grateful that you came on the show. I did want to ask you this. Like I said, I know there are people that are out there listening to you, and and they're looking at you right now, but you have a very powerful personal story. Like, when's your book coming out, bro? Because, I mean, you have a very powerful testimony about your own personal health. And I'll be honest with you, especially when I think about Black and brown educators, we always wait a lot of time, not always, but we sometimes most of the time wait until we are in crisis before we're more reactive than preventative. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to our health, right? And so I know there are people that are out there watching you right now, listening to the sound of your voice. What advice would you give to them if they are stressed out, if they aren't in the best health, whether it's physical health, financial health, spiritual health? What would be your words of wisdom?
I would say be vulnerable. Admit that you need help and go get the help. I mean, if you've seen the red flags, you ignored the red flags for long enough. Don't wait for the situation to get worse. There's a saying that says, if you want to get out of the hole, stop digging.
Ooh, that's powerful.
Right? So you find somebody who can help you, put your pride to the side and say, what, I've been struggling in this area. Go to somebody who you trust, maybe somebody who's been through what you're going through, and get some advice of some people who can help you. Don't be too prideful to ask for help.
Wow, that's powerful.
And that's spiritually, that's financially, whether you need to repair a significant relationship, you ask somebody who's been there or ask somebody who's where you want to be. How'd you get there? What did you do? What did you go through? Can you give me some tips?
Wow, that's really powerful. Y'all heard it right here. Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. Be willing to ask for that help if you need it, and don't wait until it's too late. There's somebody that didn't wake up this morning because they waited and they didn't ask for help. So thank you for that, Dr. Parker. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
I want to thank you.
And that's what I did, Dr. Joe. You asked about the book. Yeah. So I like to talk more than I like to write.
Okay.
So I took this experience and I made a workshop out of it.
Oh,
It's
wow.
called Burning Up Instead of Burning Out, Educator Mental Health Awareness. And so this workshop is now become more popular than my signature Building Relationships with Trusting Students workshop.
Wow.
So I have a workshop on culturally responsive teaching. I have a workshop on trauma-informed education. I have a workshop on restorative practices. I have a workshop on, like I just told you, educator mental health. And so my book is published by Solution Tree. It's called Building Bridges.
Okay.
That book mainly focuses on teacher-student relationships, school climate, school culture, and things like that.
Okay.
And so I have a book that will be coming out in the spring, and it's called Be the Driving Force. All right.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
It's called Be the Driving Force.
Be the Driving Force. Okay.
And the subtitle is Creating Equity Wide. Okay. And so that's just basically a book for principals, things that they can do to improve their school, improve their culture. But then that's the whole title, is Be the Driving Force. So every chapter is an analogy with something that has to do with the car. So basically, as the principal, you are the key to your school success. So I talk about how you have to put the key in the ignition, all right? And you're the key to the success. But then at the end of the chapter, say, but now this technology has changed, and now more cars have the push to start technology in them. What push do you need to start? Realizing that you're the key to their success. And then the next chapter is talking about how the principal is the engine of the car and how you're the driving force. So every chapter of the book has an analogy to a part of a car. Like one analogy talks about when I taught driver's ed, I was also a driver's ed teacher. You know, one thing they teach you is you have to have vision in order to drive. You got to see far down the road. And so when you talk about school vision for a school leader, what does that look like? So you have to foresee challenges. You have to plan ahead. You have to have a vision and mission statement. And that mission statement is like what they call it, like the GPS, the roadmap to get where you want to go. And so every chapter is an analogy that ties back to the car, but the whole premise of the book is be the driving force to lead your school, to get them where they need to be. Because that's what your vehicle does. It gets you where you need to be. And as a school leader, you have to get your students, staff, and school and community to where they need to be.
Wow. Man, the future.
So that's coming out in the spring.
Dude, the future.
And then you're right. Maybe my next book could be about my story and my journey.
Yeah, I mean, stories resonate, just like you were doing the analogy between principles and being like a vehicle. Like people really resonate to those kind of illustrations. So your story is somebody else's survival guide, right? And so
I like that. I never heard that. Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah. So
that's good stuff.
100. I mean, it could save some people's lives, really. You know?
And you know, I really believe in that. And I really believe that. We, of course, experience is the great teacher. But you don't always have to have that experience and get tripped up in order to learn from it.
That's true.
You know, of course, we all know the saying that the road to success is paved with mistakes. We always know that. Yeah, we've heard that.
Yeah.
But the truth is, like Joe, you could have been through some stuff. You're a seasoned administrator. Yeah. You've worked in different school communities.
Yeah.
I can call you on the phone and be like, hey, this is something that I'm dealing with. How can you help me? So I don't have to make that mistake. Players are going before us. And so I do believe in mentorship. I have mentors.
That's good.
And so I talk to a lot of people for advice. And I also don't mind also giving. And I don't mind people ringing my phone and asking me. So that's why I'm glad I met you, because you're an expert in this field. You're a strong school leader. I'm gonna be picking your brain.
Oh, 100. Hey, dude, I believe our iron sharpens iron. So you definitely met a friend in me and a colleague and a thought partner. So yeah, I'm excited about what the future is going to hold as far as just our own personal relationship. And I got both of your books down here. Definitely want to put those in the show notes. And
appreciate it.
I'm just grateful that you came on the show, and we've been talking at this point. Oh my God, we've been talking well over 40 minutes. And I want to thank you for coming on the show and just kind of sharing your journey so far. And
thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, man. I love what you're doing. And honest to God, when people are like you are doing things like you're doing, you're unique. So it's not a whole lot of people who have this calling. You're answering the call.
I appreciate
so seeing that you're helping other people, if I want to help other people as well, then of course I want to support you and what you're doing, because I know how impactful the work you're doing is to
I
other
appreciate
people.
that, brother. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I know a lot of people I got so much value out of our conversation this evening, but I know a lot of other people got a lot of value. But before you leave, can you just kind of give our viewers and our listeners some parting words of wisdom? Tell us how we can connect with you, and then we'll say,
yeah. All right. Yeah. So one of my favorite quotes is by a preacher named Rob Thompson.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna leave this with you. It says, the proof of desire is reaching, and the proof of reaching is progress. So just keep reaching, keep going after what it is that you want to accomplish. And you're gonna see it come to fruition after time, as long as you don't give up on accomplishing what it is that you have in your mind that you want to accomplish. And so people can follow me. My website is drdonparker.com.
Okay.
My email is the same, drdonparker@drdonparker.com.
Okay.
My Twitter is drdonparker1.
Okay.
And I have a Facebook business page. Guess what it is? Dr. Don Parker.
That's what's up. We got a theme going there.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Keep it consistent. Easy to remember.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome, brother. And like I said, there's greatness within you. And like that old saying, God is not through with you yet by a long shot.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. That's the truth for me and for you, my brother. It's like you said, it take one to know one. You speaking that blessing to me, I'm speaking it to you too. Because I see God favor dripping all over you, man.
Thank you.
Come out dripping.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much, man. And we appreciate you coming on the show. And like I said, you've definitely been a blessing to a lot of people that have heard you this evening and are watching you right now. So thank you so much, and we wish you all the best, brother.
I appreciate it. Same to you. Stay blessed.
All right, my brother. Take care.